Hey guys, I'm just bringing you a guide for Rift. It's about ability usage, macros. It's applicable to anyone of any skill level, and hopefully some of you guys will be able to benefit from it. The things I'm going to be covering in this guide are global cooldowns and ability types, assembling macros, macro logic, and tips and tricks. A global cooldown is the mandatory space of time that you wait between each ability. For Warrior, Cleric, and Mage, the global cooldown, which I'll refer to as GCD from now on, is 1.5 seconds. The GCD for Primalists and Rogues is 1 second, however. Some abilities in the game can lower global cooldowns, such as Paragon's Turn the Blade, which is in Warrior. You should try to be aware of all of these abilities and check all of your respective tooltips to find out. Your global cooldown, the actual time, will be displayed after you use an ability on the ability icon. You'll notice a small little clock-like thing spitting on each ability that you use. That is your global cooldown. There are 4 types of abilities in Rift. You have Instant, Cast Time, Channeled, and Off Global Cooldown abilities. Instant abilities are used immediately after activating the ability. Cast time abilities are used after the ability has completed casting. The casting begins when you activate the ability. Channeled abilities are used after you activate the ability, however, are used over a certain period of time. Off global cooldown abilities are unique. They can be instant, cast timed, or channeled. However, off global cooldown abilities can be used at any time, even in the middle of your global cooldown, which again is the space of time that you need to wait between each ability. You can view which type of spells your abilities are by viewing their respective tooltips. The macro system is a feature that Rift has implemented into their game. It allows you to combine multiple abilities that you would normally have to use individually into one ability that you use on one keybind. The way you access your macros is you hit escape, the macros. From here, what you're going to see are multiple tabs, along with multiple slots in those tabs. The way I like to do my macro setup is I have one tab for each spec, and then you can have multiple macros. This keeps it nice and clean and organized. With macros, there are 2 fundamental things that actually form a macro: the icon, and the second thing is the content in the macro itself to cast an ability. The way you start a macro is you have to select the icon like I was saying before. The way you can do this is either select the icon here, and you can have one of the custom preset ones. Alternatively, you can type in simple commands like show and then the ability that you would like to show as the icon, for example group assistance. So now you can see that it's showing group assistance as the icon. And secondly, in order to form a macro and for it to actually work, you need to cast an ability. So you'd have to type cast group assistance, and you'd hit save, and there's your new macro. You can also title it something you want and save. So there you have it, that's your first macro. All it's going to do is cast group assistance, and it's going to show the icon group assistance. On to the next section of macro logic. Macro logic is a lot like coding. Every time that you hit this macro, it goes down in a sequence of events. For example, if I hit this macro here, test 1 that we just made, which only has cast group assistance, the logic that it will follow is, okay, he's hit the button, can I cast group assistance? If the answer is yes, then it will cast group assistance. If the answer is no, it will proceed on to the next ability in the macro. For example, I could also add Deliverance below this, which is a 2-second cast time ability. Now, the logic here with macros is that you would never actually be able to cast Deliverance because Group Assistant is an instant ability that has no cooldown. At no point will you ever be able to not cast Group Assistance. For example, I could sit here and spam the macro. It's never going to cast Deliverance. It's just going to spam Group Assistance. However, if I change this and put cast Deliverance on top, now it will cast Deliverance if I have attack points, because it requires 2 attack points. So I have 2, it casts Deliverance. I have none. Every time I hit the button, it will check, can you cast Deliverance? If not, can you cast Group Assistance? And so on and so forth. A cool thing that you can do is you can put cast time abilities on the top, and you have instant abilities below. The good thing about this is that if you're moving, you will never cast the cast time ability because you need to be stationary in order to cast the cast time abilities. Alternatively, you can jump, and then if you need to cast the cast time ability at the very top of your macro, you can just sit still and it will cast that ability. The other logic behind macros is off global cooldown abilities. For example, what I do have in Liberator is Redress. As you can see on the tooltip, it says that it is an instant ability and has no global cooldown. I can put this anywhere in this macro, anywhere, it doesn't matter, because it's off the global cooldown and it's instant. Which means that if I'm hitting this macro twice, it will cast Redress. For example, if I put it at the bottom here, cast Redress, like I was saying with the logic before, it will never go below Group Assistance, because there is never any reason you can't cast Group Assistance. It will then cast also Redress, because it is off the global cooldown. So you can view it go on cooldown. It is now on cooldown. So I had 2 attack points, it's now casting Deliverance, Deliverance, Group Assistance, Group Assistance, Deliverance. And this is all on one button, rather than having 3 separate keybinds. Another piece of logic is cooldowns. So for example, Ameliorate is a 4-second channel with a 15-second cooldown. I can put cast Ameliorate at the top of the macro. This means that when I hit this macro once, it will see if it can cast Ameliorate first, which means if Ameliorate is available, it will cast it. It then goes on cooldown for 15 seconds. So when it goes on cooldown for 15 seconds, it will then check, can you cast Ameliorate? No, because it's on cooldown. Can you cast Deliverance? Maybe if you're standing still and you have 2 attack points. If not, can you cast Group Assistance? I'll demonstrate. So I hit the button once, it does Ameliorate. It now has 2 attack points, it will cast Deliverance. It now has 1, it will cast Group Assistance. This is an effective way if you struggle with having multiple keylines or if you're new to Rift. You can make macros on every single spec that you want, but this is the basic fundamental logic for macros. Here are some cool tips and tricks that you might want to know. So in regards to forming a macro, like I said before, what you would normally do is get the icon and then get the abilities. Now there are other commands. You just click the commands button here. You can see all of the commands that you can add into your macros. You can click on them to understand what they do, why they do what they do, and how they work. I'm going to go through some things that I like to do. This is mainly going to be applicable for the Paragon because I can't go through every single spec, but I'm sure that you can read these in your own time, and I'll give out as many pointers as I can. So for everyone, you can just make, just a normal macro. Now what you want to do under the show button is type in suppress macro failures. Now you might be wondering, what does this do? Well, you can always look, press macro failures. So normally when you hit a macro and you can't cast something, it will say invalid target or something and your entire screen will fill up with red text. This cancels that. I don't like massive red text appearing on my screen. So a cool thing with Paragon is you can pretty much macro the entire spec into one button. And that's just by using the regular macro logic. You can see on all these abilities they have cooldowns. So 15-second cooldown, 15-second cooldown, 15-second cooldown. All of these abilities you can macro together into one button. So that's a cool thing with Paragon. Another cool thing is you can cancel buffs in a macro. So for example, if I wanted to cancel Turn the Blade, so I have Turn the Blade buff on me, right? I would type cancel buff, Turn the Blade. And if I hit this macro, Turn the Blade is now gone. As well as I could also cast not active, Turn the Blade. And now if I hit this button, it's going to turn the Blade on if it's not active. And then it's going to cancel it. And it's going to turn it on, and it's going to cancel it. Turn it on, cancel it. Turn it on, cancel it. So that's just showing you what macros are capable of. Another one is tar. So tar allows you to target things. So you can tar at self. If I hit tar itself, I can target myself, just like that. You can cast a ground target area effect on yourself and target your last target. For example, what I can do is target myself, and then I can say hello %T. %T is grabbing the name of your target and putting it into the text. and then you can say target last target. So for example, if I am targeting this dummy and I say hello %t, normally it will say hello Mathosian practice dummy. If I have tar at self and then say hello %t, it's going to target me. It's going to say hello and then my name, and then I'm going to target my last target. All three of these will be done in one key press because it never triggers a global cooldown. To demonstrate, I'm targeting the dummy. Hello Munchmatoast. This can be useful if you need to target yourself and get a name, or if you need to target someone else. For example, I can target at mouse over. If I do target at mouse over, I don't need to be targeting anything. I can put my mouse on that, hit the button. Hello Mathosian practice dummy. Hello Garten hedge me. Hello me. I can do this with abilities too, so you don't even need to tar, you can cast at mouse over, so you can put your mouse on a target and cast an ability. For example, I can cast at mouse over Shock Pulse, which is a ranged attack from Warrior. I'm not targeting anything, put my mouse on it, hit the macro, bang, Shock Pulse is done. And I'm not targeting anything. There's lots of cool things that you can do. There's also ground target area effects. If you're playing Archon, you can put Lava Field on yourself and have a save macro and target your last target all in one key press. You can do all of that with the macro system. For healing, I highly recommend using at mouse over UIs because you don't need to be targeting people when you heal them. You have raid frames open, you just put your mouse on someone's raid frame and you hit the macro, and it will obviously do the normal macro logic, but it will also then put the heal on the person that you're targeting with your mouse. For healers, I highly recommend that you abuse the group macro system. What I mean by this is this. This is a massive macro for cleansing 20 people. If I hit this macro once, it's going to stop casting. It will prioritize a cleanse on whoever I have my mouse over in the UI. If I have my mouse over no one in the UI, it will cast a cleanse on myself. If there is nothing on me to cleanse, it will cleanse the person that's the first slot in the group. Then it will do the second slot in the group, the third, and the fourth, and so on and so forth. This means that if you need to cleanse someone that's in the 19th position in the raid out of 20, you don't actually need to select them. You can just hit this cleanse button. It will go through every single option in one hit, and then on the 19th person, in one click, it will notice, hey, this person needs to be cleansed, and it'll cleanse that person. So these are just some tips and tricks. There's plenty more out there, but I hope most of you have been able to benefit from this guide. And if you want any other content in the future, feel free to message me either in-game, leave a comment here, and I'll get back to you. Outside that, enjoy your time and good luck with everything. Take it easy, guys.